Hi everyone, and welcome to this video, which is going to be dedicated to the Before Trilogy. This is the three movies: Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, and Before Midnight. These movies were directed by Richard Linklater, and I'm going to be discussing my thoughts. It might be a rambly chat because I haven't got anything structured that I want to say, but it's more just my thoughts, just because it's up there in terms of, I think, greatest sort of film experiences. For me, the essential reason why I love these movies is because of the concept of time that you get within each one, but also as a trio between each one. So, yeah, this is going to be just a rambly chat. So, if you're interested in it, please consider listening. So, for anyone that doesn't know what I'm talking about when I say the Before Trilogy, it's basically three movies directed by Richard Linklater, which I just mentioned the titles, and it's based around two main characters played by Julie Delpy and Ethan Hawke, and they play Celine and Jesse. And I actually first watched the Before Sunrise, which is the first movie in the trilogy, when I was a teenager. I think I was 15 years old, so quite young, and I don't even know how I came across it, but I remember watching it, especially when I was that young age, and being so hooked and so moved that this was a movie, because it was, all of them are simple movies. There's no actual plot, but it's the connection between the two main characters and their relationship and the conversations that they have. That is why I love these movies. So don't expect, if you haven't watched them, don't expect action or any kind of dramatic plot line. Of course there is a plot, like a loose plot, but it very much centers around the connection between the two main characters. Obviously then over time I realized, oh, okay, they've made a second one, they've made a third one. And the beautiful thing about these movies is, so the first one was released in 1995. Then Before Sunset was released in 2004. And then Before Midnight was released in 2013. So they're all 9 years apart. And so you're visiting the characters in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. So in those 3 decades, if you're looking at sort of the whole trilogy. And I think that is something so unique that we don't get to see in cinema. I know Richard Linklater, there's something about his movies and time that he really focuses on, because he also directed Boyhood, which is another movie that literally was created within the span of, I think it's 12 years. So again, time is like a central theme in his work. And to literally visit characters that span 3 decades, but also visually see these people as they're aging, is a really unique experience. And I think that is what makes this trilogy so special. and worth watching, because I don't know any other films that do that. Obviously, you've got films that have sequels, but this is a raw depiction of two people. I just think that it's because the movies are so simple. Sometimes the most simplest things can have huge impact, and this does it. Again, when I first came across the first movie, I thought it was very rare because the conversations were very philosophical, which again, you don't really get in cinema, especially nowadays, I feel. And so to see two characters having these discussions and conversations on literally life and the future and death was really new to me. And so, firstly, I would say if you are not aware of these movies or you haven't heard of them, please go watch them. And if you have seen them and you haven't seen it in a while, then I would urge you to rewatch it like I did. And this time, I don't think I've ever decided to do it sort of consecutively within a relatively short period of time. So recently I watched it over 3 weekends, so I dedicated one to each weekend. And I think again that's so special because you're almost watching it like a long episode, and it's not been that long to remember what the characters where they were last in their lives. Um, and also I think there's something magical about the fact that they're shot in different locations in Europe, and these locations themselves are beautiful cities and towns. So the first one was in Vienna, the second one was based in Paris, and then the third movie Before Midnight was based in a town in Greece. So location is, I guess, another character you could say in these movies, because so you've got the two characters and then you've got the location, which is also a character, because I feel like the environment does change sometimes the context of things or how you go about things. And I'm not gonna sort of I'm going to try and not spoil it for people who may not have watched it. But I think what has hit me, because this is like I've watched this trilogy a few times now in my life, over different periods. First time I was a teenager, um, the second time I'm not sure, and now I'm like a fully grown adult, even though I don't feel like it. And watching it now compared to when I was a teenager is obviously completely different, because you're in a different place in your life and you have different perspectives. That's really interesting to see how, I guess it applies for any film, but to see how you relate to it differently over different periods of your life. But what stood out for me this time after watching the movies was the fact that their relationship in each one was slightly different. So in the first movie, they're basically strangers meeting for the first time, and they have this magical connection and spark. And they decide to spend a day together in Vienna, and they're getting to know each other. But it's not surface level talk. It becomes more than that. And then in the second movie, you're seeing them, I guess, meet again after a period of time. And then in the third one, without spoiling it too much, they know each other really well by this point. And yeah, for people who know, obviously they know what I'm talking about. But I'm not gonna say too much because I don't want to spoil it for people who have not watched this trilogy. But they really are special pieces of film. And another thing that stood out for me, watching the third movie was with Before Midnight, is there's a moment where Celine and Jesse are sitting sort of outside and they're watching the sun go down. And obviously it's a sunset and it's kind of, I guess, mirroring before sunrise, before sunset, before midnight. It's the sun is also very much an element to showcase time and sort of whenabouts in the day are they having these interactions, and just how a sunset can be so fleeting. I think I almost took that as like a metaphor for life, that life is fleeting and so short, and sometimes we don't even realize the sun is going down, and before we know it we're like we've lived decades, and it's just like, how did I get here? Like sometimes I'm even like, how am I an adult? Like inside I feel like I could still be a teenager. And so I think in particular that's probably one of my favorite scenes in the third movie, in the Before Midnight. I think for me, out of the three, I still have a fondness, and I guess I would say the first one, Before Sunrise, is still my favorite, just because I guess it's that idealistic. You're meeting a stranger for the first time and you're connecting with them in a very unique way. And over these movies, you realize that having a deep connection with someone is actually very rare when it's a really strong connection. It's rare to have that with a stranger. And that realization becomes clearer by the third movie. And I think obviously when you're young, you have an idea of the world and you have idealism, and you see, I guess, the world as an ideal place, maybe um, more than a realistic view. But by the third movie, it's really showing the realness of life and the realness of relationships, that it's not all um, sort of fun and roses, that with any relationship, no matter how much you love someone, there can be tricky moments too. So I think for me, I still just, maybe it's because I'm an idealist, and I think there is something so just special about when you do meet a stranger and you have a really good interaction with them, let alone like a strong connection. But there's something about having an interaction with a stranger that's very special when it's really positive. And I think it just for me, it reminds me of the goodness in humanity when it's a good conversation or a pleasant interaction. And it's literally magic in the world to like have a little interaction with someone you don't know, you've never met before. And sometimes these interactions can be life-changing. And I think that's another, I guess, reminder for me in these movies that literally you can meet someone in life and your life will be completely changed. And I guess it unfortunately applies in terms of both in a good way and a bad way. In this case, obviously a good way. And yeah, like I said, these movies are based on intelligent characters. Jesse and Celine are intelligent humans having these deep conversations. And I think for someone like me, especially when I was a teenager, I just was so happy to find this movie because movies don't really contain these deep conversations. It's more like, we need to thrill the audience, we need to show drama, we need to show action. But to just have two people talking in a movie the whole time, and that's basically the movie, is a simple concept. And I think that's why I know it is popular, but it's not mainstream. And I think that is why it never became mainstream, because it's for people who connect with the movie in a certain way and who value the impact of a simple conversation. There's no kind of drama in a short period of time. There's no AI used or special effects used. It's literally the characters in the location they are. And yeah, I wanted to talk about this because there are certain things that come your way in life, whether it's movies, music, people you meet, things that happen to you, and they have an impact on you. And for me, this is one piece of art, film, that has had an impact on me. And it just, I don't know, it really makes you think. And I guess I definitely, when I watched the first one, I was like, I yearned for that kind of encounter with someone. But really, I haven't had that experience before on that level. But I have had some really, I guess we all have micro interactions with strangers that maybe have stuck with us. And they could have been something so simple, but it's still part of our life and it's had an impact. And yeah, I just wanted to reflect on it since I watched the trilogy recently. And yeah, for anyone who loves this trilogy like I do, leave a comment of what you like about the movies. Yeah, and if you've not seen them or you haven't seen it recently, I urge you to go watch them. And actually, I intentionally wanted to watch one movie at a time over a period of 3 weeks because I felt like it was enough, 1 week apart was enough time to digest the movie, but also still remember clearly what happened to the characters last time. So I would recommend you watch it in that way, but of course, whatever way that suits you. And it's a shame because I know there was a lot of talk. Well, I don't know if it's a shame. Maybe it's a good thing, but there was talk of a fourth movie. And the idea was that because there's 9 years apart for each one, that the fourth one, if it was going to come out, would have come out for 2022. Of course, 3 years have passed, or just under 3 years have passed now, and I don't think there will ever be that movie. But I think uh, there's something about trilogy, and also even when you look at the timing of something like before sunrise, before sunset, before midnight, what can come next, I guess. And I'm quite happy with the trilogy as it is. So, yeah, goodness knows if a fourth one will ever come out. And also, the acting of these actors was amazing, um, from both of them, along with Richard Linklater's directing. I'm no sort of film expert, but even the way the scenes were shot were just perfect for just focusing on the interactions with Celine and Jesse. The third one I felt like was slightly different because they added more characters into the mix, and I did feel like there was a lot more arguing, which it's reality, but I guess for viewing purposes it wasn't my favorite. But then that is the point of it. So, yeah, let me know in the comments what you think of this trilogy. And yeah, thanks for listening if you've got this far too.